Slimehouse TV, myself Theo Kane, hope everybody is good. Hold tight the Slime Alliance, the Slime Renegades, and everybody else that's locked in for a little bit of Toy Talk Tuesday. So in today's episode, I want to talk about what is the most popular vintage toy line right now. It's 2022, we're coming towards the end of the year, so as of right now, what's the vintage toy line that's the most popping? I've done a lot of research, I've done a lot of asking around, I've even got a pie chart, so I've got a nice little bit of collected information to talk to you about today. Let's get into it. So this whole thing came around because obviously I run a YouTube channel and I do lots of different stuff on here. I do a bit of toy hunting, I do a lot of toy talking, I like to do reviews and video essays, I do lots of things, but the video essays are like the thing that's where my heart is. They're the thing that I really enjoy the most, I reckon. And I like to like really analyse a toy, get into it, do a little bit of research on it, tell you about my thoughts, get some nice cinematic shots and that kind of thing. And a lot of the main toy lines, the toy lines that are the most popular, have been covered many, many times. So as much as I love them, I like to delve more into the more obscure stuff, into the toy lines that don't get as much love as some of the others. Like, for example, I did a big video essay on the old Kenner Robin Hood toys, a line that people don't really care about. They do have their fan base, but they are very niche. So they're the kind of things that I like to delve into and do video essays on. And granted, I probably spend way longer than I should on them. I do lots of cinematic shots and lots of elaborate setups and I narrate them and all that kind of thing. But that's what I like to do. But part of the parcel of doing video essays and spending that long on a video of a toy line that's not very popular and is a lot more niche is that it doesn't get traction like I do on videos when I talk about something that's way more popular. So over the past few weeks, I've been doing every like other Tuesday or something like that on this channel. I've been doing a video essay series on them, and again doing lots of elaborate setups, lots of cinematic shots, narrating them, doing lots of deep dives into research, doing motion graphics and all that kind of thing, like making full-on little documentaries. And if you've not checked them out, side note, go check them out because like they're some of my favourite things that I've ever made on this channel. But doing them, I know that the popularity around that toy line isn't as big as something that's a lot more mainstream and a lot more well-known. So I can spend like a couple of weeks on one of those videos and it will get half the views of what a video will get if I sit here and just talk about He-Man. Like no editing, no fast cuts, no nothing special or anything like that. I can sit here and talk about Masters of the Universe or something that's way more popular like Star Wars or Transformers or something like that, and it will get way more views and way more traction than if I do something cult. Like that's just part of the parcel of being into things that's niche. That's just how it is on YouTube. If you want to do something that's more cult and unknown, you're never going to get the amount of views you get if you do a video that's on something more popular, if you cover a toy line that's way more at the forefront of the toy collecting hobby. And that's fine, I'm cool with that. I don't do this for the views, I do this because I like to do it, and I've been doing it for years now. So a lot of the videos that I do that are on real obscure lines, they don't get immediate traction, but over the years they gain more and more views and they get more of a following over the years while they sit on YouTube, because people will go back and search Kenner Robin Hood and mine will always be the main video that comes up because I've covered them more. Like people have watched that video and said that nobody ever needs to do another video on that toy line, like I covered it so in depth and so perfectly. So even though that's not a video that gets immediate traction, and that's a film that now is like on half the views of my Toy Talk Tuesdays when I drop them, that's just always going to sit there and people are always going to go back to it. So I don't really mind either way, but it is nice when you bring out a video and it gets immediate traction, and that's why I like to kind of cover both. I like to do some like more obscure stuff, but then I also like to do a video to feed the algorithm and one that's like a lot more popular. Because I love all these toys, I just prefer to cover the cult stuff, but it doesn't mean that I don't love all of it. I'm just as much of a fan of He-Man now as I always was. I just prefer to cover the cult stuff, that's just my thing. I'll make that very clear as we do this video. But then that also means that that's my only way of gauging like what's a popular toy line. I know that right now, He-Man is way more popping than Mad Balls, because I did a big Mad Balls video essay a few months ago and it's got nowhere near as much traction as my videos where I talk about like more well-known toy lines have. So that's my way of gauging what's popular and not. I'm not a toy seller, I don't have a shop, I don't stand at toy fairs all the time. I sell now and again when I'm building money up for a big toy trip or something, but I'm not somebody who's in the toy market selling stuff, so I can only tell you what's popular from like my little way of doing things, and in my experience, mine is from doing YouTube videos. So it kind of got me thinking, like, what is the most popular toy lines right now? I can only gauge from what I can gauge from when I do videos, but like, what is statistically the most popular toy line as of right now, the most popular vintage toy line? Like, what's skyrocketed up? What's always been at the forefront of the collecting scene? What right now is the most popular toy line? And it's impossible for me to just do this off my own experience, off my own opinion, because I want to find out, like, statistically what is the best. So I compiled a bit of research over the last few days. Not too much research, I didn't ask thousands, but I definitely asked over 100 people, different toy collectors, and I went on all the different Facebook groups that I'm a part of, all the different toy groups, and I asked lots of people. I wrote lots of statuses across all the Facebook groups, and it had a lot of interaction, which was really good because a lot of people got involved in it. I also hit up lots of people that I know across the world, all over the world, on what their opinion is, people who own shops. I talked to lots of shops here in England, shops in other countries, in America and stuff like that, and just tried to kind of gauge on everyone that I've spoken to, what is the most popular. And then I put them all into a pie chart, and I combined all that information and all the different intel that I'd collected over the last few days, and then I put together like what I've got today for this video. Now obviously the lines that got like put to me by the majority, by the masses, were the ones that you would expect. Star Wars, He-Man, Ninja Turtles, that kind of thing. So they're the ones that I compiled into the main bulk of the pie chart that you're going to be seeing right now. So we've got Star Wars at 23.7%, TMNT at 17.5%, Transformers at 9.6%, Motu at 21.1%, Hasbro WWF at 9.6%, G.I. Joe at 12.3%, and then coming in at the very bottom is Masked Crusaders at 6.1%. Now, just because they came in last, it doesn't mean that they weren't super popular when I was asking everyone. It's just obviously Star Wars always holds the top spot. So just having a look at those percentages in the pie chart, we can see starting again at the bottom, we've got Mask at 6.1%, which has definitely like gained more and more interest over the past like 5-10 years, but they've always been a line that's always sold. They've always been popular. People have always wanted them. I think that in the last 5 to 10 years, they've just become more and more popular. The same can be said for all these toys, other than maybe Star Wars, that's always just been like super fucking popular. But Mask is one of them that's always been like sought after. People have always liked it, but over the past 5-10 years, it's just slowly gained. So I wouldn't say that that's something that's like the most popular right now out of nowhere. It's always been pretty popular. Coming in just behind them at 9.6%, and in joint with Transformers at 9.6%, the Hasbro WWF figures. Now, everybody that I spoke to who mentioned the WWF Hasbro figures have said that it's something that's become more and more popular in the last couple of years. Now, about 4 years ago, before I went to Japan, I sold all my WWF figures, all my Hasbro figures. I didn't have like all of them, but I had like a good like 30-40 of them or something like that. I didn't really have any like the rare ones, and I sold them all at the toy fair for a couple of quid each, for like, I don't know, like a $5 each or something like that, and I sold them all within doing a couple of toy fairs. Now, I don't think that they've gone up drastically in price in that time for like the lesser cared about ones, the more common ones and stuff like that. It's definitely the ones that are like more sought after, the Dusty Rhodes, the 1-2-3 Kid, and those ones that's like a lot more rarer that have gone up in price. I think the general price of WWF figures has always been like about between £5 and £10 over the last few years, and I see people all the time selling them on different Facebook groups, and the price doesn't seem to have like influxed that much. But this is also not me trying to give like a price guide or anything like that. This is just me talking about the popularity. This is not even my personal opinion. This is what I've asked people, and the WWF figures are now apparently at the same level on my pie chart as Transformers figures, which in my opinion would have always been like worth way more and way more popular. So talking a bit about Transformers, I find that they're the kind of toys that people have in their collections, and a lot of people just collect Transformers. You can be a toy collector like me that generally likes a lot of different stuff, and those people might have a couple of Transformers, the odd one dotted around in their collection. But you do get a lot of people that are just like Transformers collectors through and through. That's all they collect. You get people with giant collections of just Transformers, very much like G.I. Joe, which I'll talk about in a minute. And unlike WWF figures, they're a toy line that have lots of little parts and accessories, lots of wheels that come off, doors that break and you have to replace, and stickers that come off and all that stuff, and loads of guns and missiles. But it's interesting to know that Transformers have never took a dip. All the toy shops that I spoke to said that Transformers are always popular, but I don't think WWF figures were ever as popular. So it's interesting to see that they're now exactly on the same level in the pie chart that I've put together here. Like I said, G.I. Joe are coming up just a bit behind them at 12.3%, and G.I. Joe are again a line that people like have huge collections of just Joes. People just collect G.I. Joe a lot at a time. You can be like me and have the odd one scattered around. I've got Dr. Mindbender repping behind me and stuff like that, but people who collect G.I. Joe often just collect G.I. Joe toys. They're a bit like the people that collect Masters of the Universe and stuff like that. They're literally just G.I. Joe through and through a lot of the time. And I don't know if they've like grown in popularity over the last few years, because to me they're a toy line that's always been popular, but I think having the new G.I. Joe classified line come out, like that's also made them even more popular. G.I. Joe are a line that I don't think have ever really dipped in popularity, and if they are popular now, they've just slowly gained, like any toy line normally would, just get more and more expensive and more sought after, but they've never been a line that's ever took a dip, so they definitely like earned their place here amongst like the Mount Rushmore of vintage toy lines. So coming up after them with quite a jump at 17.5% are the TMNT figures, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Playmate figures, which again are a line that have always been popular. Like, I've been picking up these for years, and even 10 years ago you were paying like £5-10 for an accessory and stuff like that, but they seem to have done like a big jump in the last few years. I was in America about 6 years ago, and I kept seeing like Playmates figures on the cards, Usagi and stuff like that, and Fugitoid, and all these Playmates figures that are like not the main characters, like the more obscure weird side characters that people like. And I was out there seeing them on the card for a decent prices, and I was thinking, like, do you know what, if you wanted to get a carded Playmates figure collection of like a lot of the side characters, you wouldn't have to work too hard, you wouldn't have to spend that much money, you wouldn't have to go too much out your way to put together a nice carded collection. That's now definitely changed, and in the last few years the carded Playmates have become like way more expensive and way more sought after and way more popular, and they're definitely a line that I see people always selling and always buying and always like really wanting across the Facebook groups that I'm a part of and stuff like that. They're one of my favourite lines. The Playmate sculptor figures are like some of my favourite sculpts of figures ever, and I can 100% see why people have got onto them and they're more popular now, and that they've earned their place at 17.5% of this entire pie chart here. Again, not a massive jump, but quite a big jump after them. We've got Masters of the Universe figures, which are super popular. They always have been. But the people that I'm speaking to in the toy shops and people that sell toys and stuff like that are telling me that Masters of the Universe have definitely had a little bit of a dip recently. I don't know if it's because like the new retro wave have come out, the Origins line that people are mad for, that people are thinking, do you know what, rather than go out my way and buy a Ninja and a Scareglow and a Clamp Champ and spend a lot of money on them, I can get an Origins version which is very similar. When it's on my shelf from a distance, looks pretty much the same, and I can get just as much happiness from that one than if I spend a lot of money on an old one. So there's still people like me that want the original through and through, and they'd much prefer to have an original, but I think having the Origins line has definitely made it so that people can just go out and buy one of them rather than like spend a lot of money on an old one. But it's again one of those lines that's always popular, it's always at the forefront, and it's second on this list next to Star Wars, so it's still super popular. I just think it's one of those lines that dips up and down, but it's always generally, people are always like generally into Masters of the Universe and they always want them. Now, Star Wars is the next one at 23.7%, which is no surprise. Every single person still said Star Wars. One guy said a really interesting thing. He says Star Wars is the only line that's got 70-year-olds and 7-year-olds still buying it, and it's very, very true. It's always like that most popular line is Star Wars. But if you think about it, everything on here other than Mask is all stuff that's still like in the mainstream media right now. If we look at Star Wars, Ninja Turtles, Transformers, Masters of the Universe, G.I. Joe and WWF, they're all things that's like very much still in the media. Whether there's a TV show that's on like Ninja Turtles or whether there's like a new toy line like Classified with G.I. Joe, there's stuff that's still in the ether, they're still around, and that's obviously what keeps them popular. Obviously Star Wars has still got movies and TV shows and stuff coming out now. Like as we speak, Andor, he's still playing on Disney Plus. We've still not finished that series. There's still like about 3 or 4 episodes left of that series. Mandalorian new series is coming out. Star Wars is definitely something that's still very much at the forefront of people's minds. It's still there, it's out and about, and it's in front of us, so that's what keeps it popular. Which is why it's obviously that Mask, out of all of this stuff, is the least popular. Even though it's super popular, it's still the least popular in this chart because there's not a Mask TV show out now. There's not a big Mask movie coming out. Now, what's also important to note out is that all these are toy lines that are obvious. These are obviously what you think of. You might not have known the exact percentage of what I put together in asking all these different people, but if you ask somebody what are the most popular toy lines, everyone's generally going to say Star Wars, He-Man, Transformers, Ninja Turtles, because it's by it's obvious information. So what I wanted to do is have a look at some more obscure lines, stuff that's not the things that you immediately think of when you think of toys, the most popular toy lines out now. What are the ones that are like slowly creeping up over the last few years, and right now, just because Star Wars is the most popular, what's another toy line that's kind of crept up and is now selling for a lot of money or is really popular out of nowhere, one that you might not have even heard of? And I'm going to look at some eBay listings and things like that, some sold listings, because that's the way that you can gauge something's popularity. If it's selling for a lot of money on eBay and it's constantly selling for a lot of money on eBay, then chances are that's a figure that's popular right now. But I don't want you to see this as like a price guide or me trying to give you like an idea of how much stuff is worth right now. This is just stuff that you can search for in 2 minutes by looking on eBay yourself. Also, just to know, I don't really like when toys are worth a lot of money. I don't like that. I don't think toys should be worth a lot of money, but it's definitely an easy way to gauge if something's popular right now, if it's had an influx in price in the last few years. Now, 2 lines that I was surprised that didn't get mentioned a lot, because I always saw these as like up there with those most popular toy lines ever, and maybe they are. The people that I just asked out of all the hundreds of people that I asked just didn't say these names that much. They did come up, but nowhere near as much as the ones that are in the pie chart, and that's Ghostbusters and Thundercats. To me, these are 2 lines that are up there, just as popular, just as well known. known, like everybody knows these lines, but apparently at the minute they're not as popular as the lines that we just spoke about, like nowhere near as popular from everybody that I spoke to. And I think Thundercats and Ghostbusters are two of those lines that, although they're well known, they've still got like kind of like a niche following. A lot of people I know have got all the Masters of the Universe, but they don't have all the Ghostbusters figures, they don't have all the Thundercats. So I think they're the kind of thing that very much have just their own following and their own people that are into them. Especially with Ghostbusters, it's another one of those that's like G.I. Joe, where people just collect Ghostbusters toys and Ghostbusters merchandise, but I'm going to talk all about that later on when I get to Jurassic Park toys and things like that. And I think something that's similar with the Ghostbusters and with Thundercats especially is that these are toy lines that generally they're only worth like a £5-10, the figures loose, stuff like that. You will get them worth more when they've got the weapons and things, but then there's a couple of big hitters up there that are worth a lot of money. Like I know that Driller and Bengali still go for a lot of money. Driller goes for more money than fucking ever now. So although you can get like a Lion-O and a Mumra with all the weapons for like 20, 30, 40 quid or something like that, the big hitters, the stuff like the Bengali, is still going for like 100 quid with his hammer. Probably more. Yeah, Bengali with his hammer just sold for £169 on eBay with $3.50 postage. So Bengali is still selling for a lot of money. There's still certain figures and certain things within Ghostbusters and Thundercats that does sell for a lot of money, and it is popular. It's just not as popular right now as the others that we mentioned in the Mount Rushmore pie chart. But it's always very important to note that like not every figure in the line is worth a lot of money. Like I said about WWF figures and the Mattel He-Man figures, there's lots of figures that are just ramble and they're never really worth that much, but then you do get some big hitters that are always going to fetch that money and are always going to be more popular than the others. So a line that I got mentioned to me quite a lot as well when I was doing this research is Silverhawks. Now this is not a line that I think was ever even released over here in England. It might have been in very small runs, like stuff like Food Fighters, and that was never released over here, but there will have been small runs that made it into discount stores and stuff like that. So maybe I'm wrong. It's from a slightly older generation than me, so I don't even remember seeing the cartoon growing up. So I'm well aware of the Silverhawks line, but in terms of like seeing it out and about here in England, it's something that I've never seen it a lot. What I do know though, that in terms of popularity, they've really crept up in the last few years, and now I saw one that sold for £600, I saw one that sold for £1,000 graded on the card. So these are the types of toys that are really worth a lot of money right now, and that reflects the fact that they must obviously be popular to the people that want them. Loose figures are looking like between £40 and £70 with the weapons, and some of the cheaper, like less rarer stuff, the more common stuff selling for cheaper than that, but generally seem like toys that are really fetching a lot of money at the minute. I also know that I think Super 7 are doing like the new classics book style version of the Silverhawks that are coming out, and people keep saying, when are we getting the Silverhawks and stuff? So that's something else that's going to make the old line a lot more popular as well. Like I said earlier, if something's getting a new release or a new TV show or a new movie or anything like that, it really does boost the popularity of the old stuff again. My Pet Monster was another one that people name dropped a lot throughout all this research that I did, and that's a figure that even in the past year has like doubled in price. I bought one at the start of the year for £80 at a toy fair, and granted, when I bought it, the person was not really happy to sell it me for that price. I did knock them down a little bit because I wanted to get a good deal, and I give them £80 for it, and they said, oh, I know it's worth quite a bit more than that, it's kind of worth a bit more, but we'll settle on 80 quid, and we shook on it, and I bought it, and I was happy with that. But I was just looking on eBay, and one exactly like mine sold in the same condition for like £150, I think it was, with 80 quid postage. So that's something that's like definitely gone up a little bit in the time since I bought mine, and that was only at the start of the year. And over like the last few years, they're a line that I've definitely seen like boost up in value. I think a lot of people just would have had one as a kid and not really known what it were called, but then they remember it and then they see it and then they get hit with that nostalgic bug and they want to get themselves one. And I think more and more people are clocking onto how cool that toy was, even if they didn't have one as a kid. It's just an awesome thing to own. It's not an action figure, it's a big cuddly toy with a hard rubber nose and weird plastic eyes and big teeth and stuff, but it looks awesome sat on a settee, and I've got a couple of them. They're definitely one of my favourite toys, and I can 100% see why they've like grown in popularity over the last few years. But out of all the research I did, that was another one that got mentioned to me a lot. Small Soldiers were randomly one that people mentioned as well. Now this is a line that like a few years ago I had all of them, and I really do like these toys. It's a fucking awesome movie. Stan Winston effects, I love that shit. It's one that I'm surprised hasn't got like a sequel or anything like that. Like more people don't talk about it, but apparently the action figures in the last year have become more and more popular. And I remember when I sold mine again, it was before I went to Japan, and I sold all of them at a toy fair, I think, and I sold them at an okay price, but not as much for what they go for now. So having a look on eBay, they seem to like go for between like some of the rarer ones like £40 with the weapons, maybe like £20-30 for the lesser known ones with the weapons, and then for ones that's like in a box that's like really nice condition of the more rare ones like the Frankenstein dude, we're looking like £100 plus. So these are toys that have definitely become more popular in the last few years, and they're dope. They're a big fucking dope chunky action figure that are sculpted well. They've got nice colour paintwork. They're from that like late 90s early 2000 era of action figures where things were like really more bulked up and a lot better quality quality, so I can 100% see why they've become more popular in the last few years. Also interesting to note that a lot of the ones that I saw on eBay that were selling were all coming from America. I don't know if they got more of them released over there than we did over here, but these were people buying them and putting £20 postage on top of that, and they were still happy to pay it. So again, a big reflection of how popular they are right now. Next up is a line that I'm a big fan of. I've talked about them a lot on this channel. These Playmate sculpts are some of my favourite toys of all time, and it's the Toxic Crusaders. This is definitely a line that in the last few years have gone like fucking crazy, and I don't know what it is. I know why I like them, but for some reason in the last few years, I mean, I've always been a fan of these things, but I think just more and more people are like clocking onto how cool these are, and the prices have gone insane. I've got horror stories where like 6 years ago I've let them all go carded for like 30 quid each because I wanted to save my money, and I'm like, oh, I'll buy them another time in the future. They're not going anywhere. That's not going to become popular anytime soon, and then now they're stupid fucking popular. I wanted to get all the Toxic Crusaders merchandise and stuff like that at one point. Now I'm just like, I'm done. I'm not even doing it because the prices that these things have gone up is ridiculous. Again, a huge reflection of how popular they are right now. Just for like little accessories and stuff, people are playing like 20, 30, 40 quid. I did a whole video talking about how much someone were trying to charge for no zone goggles. This shit's gone crazy right now. But these were one that a lot of people mentioned, obviously, because they're up there with like the Playmates and Ninja Turtles mutant figures and stuff like that. They're just like such a certified line, and they're just one of them that's just becoming so popular right now, and I can see why. They're fucking awesome figures. What do you expect? And they will have also had a much more smaller run than the Ninja Turtles mutants would have got, so there'll be a lot less of them out in the wild. You do still get them. They're not rare. There's certain parts of them that are rare, and it's also interesting to note and important to note that on their own, loose, they're not really worth anything. It's when you've got them with all the weapons in their entirety that they're worth money. So I've got all the Playmates figures loose. I've got like 99.9% of their weapons. I don't have any of the vehicles other than the Smog Cycle, which isn't 100% complete, and I probably won't have those vehicles anytime soon because the prices that they've gone up to now is just so crazy that I'm just done. I don't even want anything to do with the prices that people are trying to charge for them right now. So yeah, not really rare or worth money, all that popular on their own, just the single figures, but when they've got all the weapons and even carded or anything like that, that's when they're really popular and they're worth money and people are like throwing a lot of cash at them. Another one that got mentioned to me quite a few times randomly, and it's not one that I expected, were the old Mattel Simpsons figures. So I remember like my Auntie Karen bought me one of these before I'd ever even watched The Simpsons, because it was only on Sky TV when I was a kid, and we never had Sky. We just had channel 1, 2, 3 and 4. So my Auntie Karen bought me this figure of Nelson with a trash can and a speech bubble that fit in his head, and I was like, what the fuck is this random figure? Like, it's bizarre. I loved it obviously, but I just didn't know what it was off. But apparently these are a line of toys that's become really popular in the last year, and what's also nice about this line is that they're not going to break the bank if you want to get them. Some of the cheaper ones were like £10 on the card when I was looking at sold listings on eBay. Others were like 40 quid for the more, I don't know, rarer, more popular characters or whatever. But between 10 and 40 quid for carded figures is not a lot of money when you're in this vintage toy game. So if you wanted to get a toy, if you wanted to get a collection of them, like, you really wouldn't have to break the bank. You wouldn't have to go out your way to get a nice collection of those together, and I don't think there's like a huge amount of the characters that you could get. They also did some Playmates ones. There's a lot more characters in that line, but if you're looking at the Mattel ones, they're a really nice figure, and if you wanted to get them, now's the time to grab those. So yeah, not a toy line that I expected to come up when I was talking about the most popular toys in 2022, but they were ones that got mentioned to me quite a few times as well. Another toy line that's not gone up ridiculous, but it's definitely grown in popularity over the last few years is Karate Kid, and we all know why, because Cobra Kai is fucking fantastic. Like, that is a show that I will sit and watch and bawl my eyes out at certain parts, crying because of the fucking little deep cuts that they get and bring back characters that you never expected to see. I think it's season 2 when he goes back to Okinawa and he teams up with Chosen, and then we meet the girl that was ringing the bell and she gets him his car firm back. Oh man, that proper got me there. I love it. It's got all the feels in that show. But you can also see why these toys have become so popular again over the last few years. Like, they've obviously had an influx because of how popular Cobra Kai is. And that goes back to what I was saying earlier. Star Wars has never not been popular, so the toys are popular. There's never not been a TMNT cartoon on the TV, really, so that's why those figures are always popular. And the same goes for Cobra Kai. And I think that if they brought like a new RoboCop series out and they brought back Peter Weller and they had Phil Tippett do stop motion effects and made it like really authentic to the source material with lots of deep cuts to characters like Clarence Boddicker and Kane and stuff, I think people would love that TV show, and it would make those old Kenner RoboCop figures just as popular as the Karate Kid ones. Nostalgia sells and people are buying, and when there's something that good, it's not uncommon for people to want to go back and pick up the originals that they either had as a kid or just feel like they should have had as a kid, or they should have now that they're an adult because they enjoyed the source material so much. Another line that got mentioned to me a lot is the old Action Force by Palitoy. Now, these are an interesting line because these are a prime example of like only certain figures that are worth money. So a lot of the the soldiers, the SAS, the diver and all that kind of stuff, they are popular, they do sell for money, but not like a stupid amount. Again, before I went to Japan, the last trip I took like 4 years ago, I sold all my Action Force. I kept Skeletron and I kept Kraken, but I sold all the main soldiers and Baron Ironblood and everything. And I was doing them for like a $5 with the weapons. And they slowly sold over the course of doing like 2 or 3 toy fairs, 4 toy fairs or something like that. And then I sold the rest on eBay. So these are a popular line, but only like the certain characters that are actually like worth money that are people like really wanting. All the like Red Beret Soldier and stuff like that and the General Troopers. Yeah, they're worth money. They're worth a few quid with the weapons. They're nice. There's still people selling like carded ones for like 20, 30 quid, 40 quid on eBay, sold items and stuff like that. But Kraken always sells for a lot more money because he's obviously a fucking Kraken sea monster, so people like him. And then Skeletron sells for money as well because he's a dope fucking skeleton and people love 80s skeleton toys. And then obviously the Robo Skull ship sells for hundreds now. Like I wanted one of them, but I'm just not even going to bother trying now because they just sell for stupid amounts of money. Dope as fuck toy, but I ain't spending all that money on it. But again, that's what makes it popular because I can see people spending money on it. The reflection of it is that sometimes when people see a toy with a lot of money being spent on it, then they want it and it makes it popular to them even though they were never really bothered before. That's the weird thing with toy collecting that I never get. People wanting something because they've seen someone else spend a lot of money on it. Like, that's crazy, right? So this is a good example of a line that's not all super popular, definitely has its fan base, and you get fans that just want to buy everything from that line, but then you get some fans that just want a Robo Skull. They just want a Kraken. They just want a Skeletron. And again, a line that's definitely gone up in value and popularity over the last few years. Now, a few people mention Mad Balls, and Mad Balls are super popular. I'm on like Facebook groups that are just dedicated to Mad Balls and gross art toys and stuff like that, but they're not as popular as you might think. I think what it is, that especially with the head poppers, there's a lot of more of a lower run of them that at least got distributed over here in England and stuff. So they do go for a lot of money. The people are trying to sell like just the single heads and the bodies on their own with pegs snapped off and everything for like 30 odd 40 quid each, like incomplete and stuff like that, and then like I don't know, like 70, 80 to £100 for a complete head popper and stuff like that. But they're very much again like a niche collection, and I know this because I released a big video essay on Mad Balls earlier this year, and it nowhere near got as much traction as if I'd talk about He-Man on a Toy Talk Tuesday episode and stuff like that. Like I said at the start of the video, this is my way of gauging what's popular right now. And although there's people that always want to buy Mad Balls, like I said, this isn't a video talking about how much everything is worth, and it's not about its monetary value and how much is and what's a price guide on this stuff. I'm talking about the popularity, and just because there's a few people spending a lot of money on Mad Balls right now on eBay, on head poppers and stuff like that, it doesn't mean that the general mass population are making them so that they're one of the most popular toy lines of 2022. So I love Mad Balls. I fucking love Mad Balls, and I'm glad that I collected all mine years ago before they were super popular, because now they have gone up for a lot of money, and people are often trying to sell the squishy balls and everything like that for much more than I would ever want to spend on them. So thankfully I got mine years ago. Yeah, they're definitely going for way more than what they should be selling for, in my opinion. Visionaries is another line that got mentioned to me a lot whilst I was doing this research, and they're also another one of those lines that like not every single figure is worth money, and also they break very easy. So you need to have the figure with his chest plate, his staff, his weapon and his helmet for him to even be worth anything. Now there's some figures from that line that are worth a lot of money, and before I went to Japan, again, I sold all my loose Visionary figures. They didn't stand up well in the shelf or anything like that. I wanted to spend the money on kaiju. I really like those toys. I've got a lot of nostalgic attachment to them and stuff like that, but I just sold them in that time because I just needed the money basically for toy hunting. I needed toy hunting cash for Japan, so I made the sacrifice to sell them all. And at the time I was selling them on eBay and at toy fairs and stuff like that, and some were going for an alright price, and then there were others that went for like a lot more money than I expected. I didn't even realize that how much like certain figures were worth and stuff like that. So they're definitely one of those lines that are generally always worth a bit of money, but you get some ones that's worth a lot more money. So if we gauge that to its popularity, I would probably put them in the same bracket as like Mad Balls. Not as popular as Mad Balls, but a line that's like pretty niche, that like you do get collectors of them, but like overall they're not super popular. Maybe you disagree with me, maybe I'm wrong. Let me know in the comments below. Like if you disagree with me or agree with me on anything that I've spoke about today, let me know in the comments below. So another line that didn't get mentioned to me as much as I would have expected to get mentioned to me is the Kenner Jurassic Park figures, because they're a line that I've seen like go up and up and up in value over the last few years, and obviously we've had 3 Jurassic World movies in the last few years, so that's definitely aided their popularity. And there's also like a lot of lines that get released now, Jurassic Park lines and throwback retro lines and stuff like that. Like we got Samuel Jackson with his arm getting pulled off and an old Jurassic Park car with a big T-Rex and stuff, all things that look like those old toys. So people see them on the shelves and then they buy them, and then they think, oh, I might get some of the old ones. I've also noticed that like the loose figures, even complete, aren't worth that much money, but when they're on a card with like particular backdrops and stuff, then they sell for a lot more. And the prices for the dinosaurs and the compound and the cars and all that kind of stuff has skyrocketed in the last few years, so they've definitely become more popular than they were a few years ago. And that popularity is due down to lots of things. Obviously, there's new movies coming out, people love that old nostalgic stuff, and then these are also a toy line that are a very good example of something that people collect that aren't even really general toy collectors. You get some people that just collect Jurassic Park merchandise and they just want all the merchandise that came out for Jurassic Park, and in turn also want the old figures as well. Speaking of dinosaurs, another toy line that didn't get talked about on this list, but I wanted to talk about, and were the Dino Riders. They're a line that are very niche. They've got a very niche cult audience for them, but the people that are into them spend a shitload of money on that. Like my friend Gareth, Dino Riders UK, he's one of the biggest Dino Riders collectors in England, and some of the prices that he tells me that people are throwing about for these things are like unbelievable. They're crazy. Like the prices for the Diplodocus and stuff, like, boy, I remember years ago, I've told this story before, like I got offered like a huge lot of these all in the boxes for like 200 quid like 10 years ago, and I turned it down because at the time I wanted to spend the money on something else, and I wish I'd have got them, because trying to get together a collection of Dino Riders now in 2022 is very fucking hard, just because of how popular they are. So they might not be up there with like He-Man and Star Wars and stuff like that, but for the people that are into Dino Riders, they're fucking worth a lot of money and they're very popular. So another subculture of toy collectors that exists are people that just collect minifigures. And when I say minifigures, I'm not talking about like Lego minifigures, because they're often referred to as that. I'm talking about like muscle figures, Kaneko Man, Keshe, Monster in My Pockets, Battle Beasts, Z-Bots, that kind of thing. People that just collect small toys. And I'm a big fan of minifigures. I've done a couple of documentaries all about them here on this channel, including another one of my favourite videos that I've ever created called Toys Your Parents Threw Away. But I'm part of a UK minifigures collectors group over on Facebook. It's actually one of my favourite toy groups on Facebook. By being a part of that, I see the toys that's become more and more popular, and I also wanted to ask them, like, what's the stuff that's really popping right now in the minifigures community? And there's two lines that I keep getting seen mentioned to me lots and lots. One of them is called Bad Eggs Bunch, and the others is called Horrors and Heroes. So these are just two tiny little obscure figures that would like so easily go amiss if you was like looking through a box of toys at the car boot. You would probably like blink and you would miss them. Horrors and Heroes came in like these lucky bags in the late 90s, early 2000s, and they're like all based on Greek mythology and that kind of thing. I've got a couple of them, and these have gone like fucking stupidly high priced in the last few years. If you look at the sold listings on eBay, like, it will blow your mind how much these things sell for. And this is not even me trying to jack up the prices of these things, because surely they can't go up in price any more than what they already are. £100, a couple £100 for a little tiny fucking squishy rubber minifigure, like, that's fucking crazy to me, but it shows how much these figures have become popular in the last few years. Another one is Bad Eggs Bunch. These are figures that came in like a little egg full of slime that are so fucking cool. You actually like crack the little egg open and then you would get a little blind bag toy inside. So fucking awesome. I really do like these figures, but they're another one that's like gone crazy in the last few years. Again, look at the eBay sold listings for how popular these have become in the last few years. It will blow your little fucking brain away. So they're all the different lines that I compiled together whilst asking people what are the most popular toy lines of 2022. And if you asked all different subcultures, they would all give you other honourable mentions. We didn't talk about Power Rangers or Beast Wars, Street Sharks, Extreme Dinosaurs, Biker Mice from Mars, Skeleton Warriors, Mighty Max, all these like figures that all exist within different subcultures, but these are ones that just didn't get mentioned as much as the ones that I talked about today. So if there's any that I didn't mention that you think still deserve an honourable mention, or that you think that are really popular, they just didn't come up when I asked all the people that I asked. Like I said, I did ask over 100 people, so it wasn't like I just asked 10. I asked people all over the world, and these are the names that I compiled. But if there's any that you think should have been on that list, or any that you think I missed, or any that still deserve a little bit of an honourable mention, please let me know down in the comments below. If this is your first time here at the channel, I'm Theo Kane, this is Slimehouse TV, and we do videos like this every single week, so if you like it and you want to see more, don't forget to hit the subscribe button, join the channel, and we've got a really good community here. I see this as like a toy community. It's not just a place for me to floss my collection and talk shit about toys. I like to hear your opinions, so we've got a really good toy community here, and I really do like being involved in a chat after. I don't always get to reply to every single message that gets put onto the videos, but I love seeing people talk toys down in the comments below. So if this is your first time at the channel, then introduce yourself down below and let me know if there's anything that you'd like to see me talk about in a future video. If you want to hit me up but you don't want to do it publicly, you can get at me on Instagram at Theo_Kane_Slimehouse. That's the best place to hit me up if you want to talk to me. It's the social media that I'm the most active on. And I've also got a Patreon. You can head over to patreon.com/SlimehouseTV, and there's a few different tiers on there, including the Slime Alliance tier, which allows you to get access to these videos 2 weeks in advance and some other exclusive stuff as well. So with all that said and done, I hope you enjoyed today's video. Like I said, any honourable mentions, please let me know down in the comments below. I want to do more stuff like this, and I want to say a big thank you to everybody that got involved, because I wrote statuses all over loads download so many different Facebook groups to try and compile all that information. It took a lot of pissing about, but I really do appreciate everybody getting involved in it. It really does make these kind of videos worth doing, and like I said, I'd love to do more like this in the future. So until the next video, this is Slimehouse TV, I'm Theo Kane, and I'm gone.